Welcome to Office 2013 class video number 36. Hey, if you want to download this workbook, and this is for the videos 35 to 39, click on the link below the video or go to our class website. Hey, we got to talk about defined names, a great feature. Now, earlier in the class, we talked about tables, the Excel table feature, which allowed dynamic ranges, and we used table names in our formulas. Now, defined names are a little bit easier. They're not dynamic like the tables. But if you have a situation like this, we have a huge data set, and we're actually going to be making calculations on the same column. So sales, total sales, number of sales, max sales, min sales. We're going to repeatedly be using this column over and over. If you have a case like that, we can use defined names. And what that means is we actually will highlight the entire column, give it a name, and instead of using the range in our formula, we'll actually use the name. And we'll give it a smart name, the field name, so we'll know that that's for the sales column. The three benefits we're going to gain from using defined names is, well, we won't have to highlight the whole column each time, which takes extra time. We'll actually avoid errors, because if we're highlighting the same column over and over, maybe one time we forget a cell, and there'll actually be the name sales in our formula, so it'll directly tell us which column that the formula is looking at. All right, so to create names, there's a couple ways we can do that, but let's look at the easiest way. I'm going to click in the top cell, not the field name, the actual data, and use our keyboard to highlight the column, Control-Shift-Down arrow. Wow, that's a lot of rows. That's like 2,000 records. That's going to save a lot of time repeatedly highlighting 2,000 rows. Now, with the range highlighted, up here in the formula bar is the name box. If you hover your cursor, you can see that name box screen tip. All you have to do is click inside the name box and type a name. You can't have any spaces. There's some characters you can't use, and you can't start with a number. So I'm going to call this sales. And when I hit enter, just like that, the range is now called sales. Let's test it. I'm going to click somewhere else. Notice the name box says G29, but when we use our drop-down and click on the defined name sales, instantly it highlights that whole range. Now, for naming conventions, I do have some notes up here. That's like some of the characters you can't use. A couple more things about defined names that are important before we use them. Hey, let's go up to the Formulas ribbon, and there's a whole group just on defined names. We want to look at Name Manager. Now, notice the keyboard shortcut, Control F3. If you click here, you'll see your list of names. This dialog box is important because you can delete and edit. Sometimes your range changes or you made an error, so you can click Edit. You can edit the name, and notice refers to, if I point to this lower corner and click and drag, refers to. This is actually a formula that has the sheet name and the range of cells. Click OK. So you can edit that and change it. I'm going to click Close. Also in the Formulas ribbon, Define Groups, there is Use in Formula. If you forget your name, there will be the list of names. And we'll see this one, Create from Selection, which is really awesome. We'll see that one in just a second. Notice there's keyboards for all of those. Create from Selection is Control-Shift-F3. And Use in Formula, it doesn't tell you the keyboard, but I'll show you it in just a second. Now let's try this. For total sales, I'm going to do Alt equals. That's the keyboard shortcut for the auto sum. And if you forget your names, hit the F3. F3 opens up Paste Name. And if you have a lot of names, it's just a great feature. All right, so you can double click it and it puts it in. That's one way to put the name in. How about number of sales? Wow, that's a lot of total sales. I'm going to format this Control-1. Currency and no decimals. Click OK. All right, so number of sales. Well, these are numbers, so we use count. And watch, when we have our function. It's asking for value. Usually we put a range. We type an S, and in the drop-down, we see function names. Earlier we saw that we had table names. That dog tag icon there means it's a defined name. As soon as I see it highlighted, I hit Tab. I love that. Enter. Now remember, our goal is to create our formulas more quickly and more accurately. So by using defined names equals MAX for max, S tab, enter. Equals MIN for minimum, tab, S. When I see my defined name, even if I have to type a few letters or arrow down, as soon as it's blue, tab, enter. I absolutely love defined names. How quick and easy is that? Now, notice this is a proper data set with field names at the top. Lots of times you're absolutely using every single column. So over here, we're going to use the sales column, and we're going to use the region column because we're going to be adding for each one of the regions using the SUMIFS function. And then up here, I want to use some functions on the date column. So check this out. We can actually highlight the entire data set, including field names. Our keyboard is Control asterisk. Now, the key to this trick, and you would go up to formulas, and it's called Create from Selection. The key is that you have a name, some text, above each column, just like most proper data sets. That's why they made this feature. So now you just go up to Formulas, Create Names from Selection. Now I do this all the time, so I'm going to do the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-F3. Ready? Control-Shift-F3. And just like that, it's polite. It says, where are your names? Now, some data sets have names on the left and the top, so it's trying to be polite. Uncheck left. Because do we have field names over here or names for each one of these rows? We do not. We have field names only. That's the top row. Click OK, and you're not going to believe this. Watch this. The whole defined names now has the customers. We're testing using our little drop-down date, just like that. And notice it's not including the field names. The actual field names were given as names for each one of these columns. Formulas, Name Manager, or Control F3. That is absolutely beautiful. So if you get a big data set and you're just constantly using the columns and functions and formulas, this is amazing. Now let's go do a couple calculations. How would you find the first date or the last date? Well, it depends on whether you know dates are serial numbers or not. Because they're numbers, guess what? We can just use min for the first date and max for the last date. This is important because sometimes you're going to go do some analysis and you need to know what is the range for your date. So for first date, that's equals min. D, A, and check this out. There's a date function and a date defined name. That's why those icons are so important. I want the dog tag, so tab, enter. Ooh, what's happening here? We're not fooled at all. We know that it doesn't have the date number format. So I'm going to highlight both of these cells, Control 1. And under date, there's all sorts of amazing things. We actually didn't even look at this back in our number formatting. Look at this one. If you wanted to see the actual day, you could select that or any one of these. So even though there's a serial number underneath, we can display it in many different ways. I'm going to select the one at the top. By the way, try this one. It's cool. It tells you the actual full day name. All right, so now both of these cells have the date number format. So 6/7/2004 is the first date, equals max tab D. I'm making sure I see my dog tag and not the function icon tab. Control Enter. So it looks like the dates are from 6/17/2004 to 6/16/2006. Now let's do one last formula here, and we'll see an added benefit for defined names. What do we need to do here? Well, we're adding. I want to add from the sales column only the sales for southeast, west, north. Remember, this isn't adding all of the sales, it's adding just some of them. So we can use the SUMIFS equals SUMIFS. The screen tips are polite. The argument I'm looking for is sum range. That means the numbers I'm adding. So sales, S. Oh, and look, there's our sales rep. Tab. Comma, criteria range. Well, I need region. How about REG tab? Comma, and then the criteria, one cell to my left. Now here's another benefit. When you create defined names, that's absolute, so I don't have to worry about locking them. That, of course, is not, because when I copy this formula down, I need to look relatively at each one of the one cells to my left. All right, close parentheses, Control Enter, and double click and send it down. Go to the last one in F2. That is amazing. Look at that defined name. So it's accurate, it's fast, it even is absolute. Now, a couple more important things. Actually, highlight Control 1, currency, 0 decimal places, click OK. Couple more things you may have noticed in the drop-down over here. What happened to sales rep? Because we had a space right here, you're not allowed to have spaces in defined names. Let's go to Formulas, Name Manager, or Control F3. And sure enough, you can see it there too. If I click Edit, it was really polite. It put an underscore for us. And so that's what we'll do. If you have to have a space in your field name, it'll be polite and put an underscore. Also notice here, we can see, oh, it is absolute. Now, it's extremely rare that you would ever change it to anything besides absolute. But if you ever had, guess what? This is totally editable. You could change it using your F4 key. All right, I'm going to click Escape, Escape. Define names. Quick and easy instead of highlighting. Accurate because we're not making selection errors. You can actually see the field names or whatever names you decided to call your columns. And then the fourth benefit, absolute if we're copying. All right, we'll see you next video. In next video, we'll talk more about SUMIFS and COUNTIFS, and we'll finally see some examples where we have used these criteria too, so we have more than one condition or criteria. All right, we'll see you next video.